Thanks for the introduction, Pat.
By local standards, I'm a recent arrival to Cairns in Queensland. I have no parochial ties to the region, so while I'm passionate about a new state, it's based on reason and logic rather than any emotive issues. The catalyst of my establishing the Brisbane group was the 2017 redistribution. Now, does anyone actually remember that happening? Did you note it as any event in your life? Politician did. But for most people, it passed unnoticed. But it was a very significant issue because what it set up, and is set up for a whole future, is the diminishment of power for regional Queensland. That redistribution saw the addition of 40,000 voters since the roll before. To do that, they had to increase quotas from 29,000 to 33,000 and create 4 new seats, all of which were created in southeast Queensland. So now you have a situation where 70% or 70 odd members are within 250 kilometres of the CBD. So yes, from the diagram up there, you can see how many representatives you have possibly got control of out of the 93 in the Brisbane Parliament. The thing we're up against all the time is that bulk number down in that southeast corner, that's 73. The decisions that come out of there are going to be influenced more by the constituents of those 73 members than all the constituents in the rest of Queensland. So that's the problem for us. Lack of representation in our Brisbane Parliament. There's going to be another redistribution in 2025. By then, with the rate of increase in population in Queensland, because of people seeing a much better proposition than living in Victoria, they move to Queensland. So you get your natural increase and you get a across the border increase. So we're looking at an increase of 560,000 voters by the next redistribution. Again, they'll have to increase the quotas, more likely from the current 33 to 37,000, and at least 5 more seats will have to be created. And they all will be in the southeast corner, simply because the southeast corner grows much faster than regional centres. And if you notice, if you drive from Mount Isa to Townsville, up to Weipa, or anywhere, you can see populations decreasing in the regional areas rather than increasing. So we've got a real problem. So we can expect regional Queensland's representation in the Brisbane Parliament to continue to diminish. When will people in Central and North Queensland make the decision for themselves that this has gone past a situation where their interests are represented by the Brisbane Parliament? So you have to think in regards to when you will accept that southeast corner getting. So it's your choices. Support the status quo, be a diminishing voice in the Brisbane Parliament, or support a North Queensland state with your own fully accountable parliament. So to get out of the situation that we're in the moment of diminishing influence in that Brisbane Parliament, statehood is the only way we can arrest this regression. There's a number of groups who advocate for a North Queensland state, but as yet we haven't really got a definitive border that's been set for most of these groups advocating it. We've got a situation where we think the minimum border should be latitude 24 south, which is just below Gladstone, which caches 2 coal-fired power stations. Right. Throughout Australia's history, it's been a natural progression that as time passed and settlement reached wider parts of Australia, new colonies were created through the separation from New South Wales. So our time of settlement in 1788 to 1860, we've increased from a single colony through to 6 colonies. Right throughout that time, there was a continued agitation for even breakup of those existing colonies. There was a history within Central and North Queensland where they too tried to separate during the colonial days. Much of that came to a stop with we moved towards federation. The founding fathers were quite aware that as time went past, the colonial capitals would not well represent those people in far-flung regions from their capitals. And they provided in our constitution the means to separate from their current parliaments. They actually devoted a whole chapter 6 of the Australian Constitution provides for the creation of new states by regions separating from existing states. So we've got the legal framework, but the only trouble is our founding fathers put the emphasis to get these things underway into the state parliaments. And unfortunately, state parliaments don't like letting go of any power. Whereas before in the colonial days, if an area wanted to secede from New South Wales, they only had to get together, get a petition, send it to the colonial office in London. If that was passed, they would get a letter of patent from Queen Victoria and a new colony would be formed. Right, after Federation, there was continued movements to create new states, mainly in New South Wales and Queensland. We had the central Queensland trying to break away. We had the Riverina area in New South Wales trying to break away. Eden and Monero as well. But the most successful group of trying to get a new state was the New England New State movement, which was centred around the areas of Grafton, Tamworth and Armidale. That was the main regional centres. Now that movement, they managed to influence the Country Party, which was the main party in those regional areas, such that the party, if you wanted to be a candidate in those parties, you'd have to be a proponent of the New England state. The New England movement was re-established in the 1950s. The movement was firmly established, and in 1961 it actually raised £100,000 to further its cause. The main problem was, no matter how much influence it put on the local areas, it couldn't make the New South Wales Labor government, which had been in power since 1941, to do anything about it. The Labor government just did not engage. So, with the influence on the Country Party, they managed to get an agreement with the Liberal Party in the 1965, in the run-up to the 65 election, to form, if they formed a government, a coalition government, the agreement was that the coalition government would provide the people of New England with a referendum. They won that election, so the Askin government had to provide them with the referendum. But Askin, he wasn't really in favour of the new state because they'd only just won back power for the first time in 24 years. Now they had a situation that if there were a new state created, they would suddenly lose 8 Conservative seats, which then, as a Sydney Parliament, they would have a hard time beating Labor. So what they did, they seized on the 1933 Nichols Commission boundary recommendations, which set the borders for the referendum to include Newcastle, Maitland, Cessnock, even down to Lake Macquarie, all areas that had little affinity with the New England agricultural areas. The result of that election saw them losing that vote by 46% to 54%, mainly because the inclusion of Newcastle. In Newcastle, in some of those ballot boxes, they only got 15% of the vote. So that was the reason that they lost that referendum. If they had just stuck and set their own border, the New England state movement, just at latitude 32 degrees south, which would include all the agricultural areas, but dismissed Newcastle, in those ballot boxes they would have won the referendum by 75%, and they would have been the 7th state of Australia. So we've got to heed those sort of lessons when we go with our movement. So one thing we shouldn't fear is a straight line of latitude as the southern border. Right. It doesn't really matter where you live in the regions, you're treated pretty well equally by Brisbane. You get little to no consideration. So our mission is to secure for the residents of Central and North Queensland a referendum to vote yes or no on the proposition of forming a new state of the Commonwealth of Australia. There are a number of roadblocks in our way and we need to get over them. And one of the things we're trying to do is inform people that it can happen, how it can happen, and the benefits they can achieve. Now, in regards to borders, there is actually a historic border. This is a map of North Australia in 1846 that existed for a period of 2 years. The capital was actually Port Curtis, which is Gladstone. So that's a historic border, and that border runs off the top of South Australia right across to Tin Can Bay. The viability of a new state increases greatly as you extend the border southwards. So it's extremely important that when we talk about a new state, in the same breath we say North Queensland and Central Queensland, because it's going to need to be, those two entities need to be together to create a viable state. As you can see, here's the growth from the colonial days in regards to how settlement spread out from coastal cities. If you look at the far north, northern and central, their ports actually had rail links that allowed them to spread westward. While Mackay actually didn't have any rail links, and it actually, as an economic group, it locked itself into just one little section. It didn't actually spread far to the west. But they're the sort of economic boundaries you can look at for a new state. So including far north, central and Mackay, and running a border on the regional development of shires and councils as we've developed over the past centuries, that could also be provided as a border. If we had this border, we accepted this border at a later date, it would be reasonable when population increase and wealth increase, you would turn around and consider splitting into Central and North Queensland as separate states sometime in the future. This aligns with the ideas of competitive federalism, where states compete with each other to be efficient to grow wealth. We have a situation at the moment where states have sort of become lazy in a fair degree in regards to they get money depend on money from the Commonwealth, especially states like Tasmania. There's no real incentive for them to be productive or wealth creating, because they get a fair portion of their money granted to them under the GST arrangements to run their economy. Thank you.